I believe that Arby's gets a bit of a bad rap when it comes to the fast food industry. They don't exist in a space where the giants reside.
They have the meats.
How could you be more useless than you were last segment?
Well, I was just telling you. I mean, they have the meats.
Yeah, it's a good ad
I also
campaign.
make you fart.
Yeah.
Arby's now has a sandwich of bacon and a Hawaiian roll. And I believe the Hawaiian roll is the greatest of all the breads. I don't believe.
Agreed.
You may object.
The bagel would like a word.
Little sweet.
Well, that's part of the reason that I like it. Not surprisingly.
Holla.
At Le Batard Show, what do you believe to be both the greatest of the breads?
Money.
The second greatest of all of the breads, and what do you believe to be the single greatest thing in fast food? Because as a concept, I think I could get behind, and I've not had it, so I don't know how good it is. It just sounds delicious.
A couple years ago, they introduced these seasonal King's Hawaiian Roll menu items, and I went for one, and it was very good because it was on a King's Hawaiian Roll, and King's Hawaiian Rolls are the best.
Cheesy gordita crunch for me in all of fast food.
I think number one has to be the McDonald's fry.
Peak McDonald's fry is the best.
I would agree with that. I would say in terms of sandwiches, the chicken sandwich with cheese from Burger King is probably the best I've had.
Spicy chicken sandwich from Wendy's for me. Also, the Wendy's chili, underrated.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Are McDonald's fries the single greatest fast food item in the history of fast food items? Greg Cody, do you have any objection to the Hawaiian roll being second only to money on the greatest of all the breads?
For me, it's a little too sweet. I just don't prefer it. I'm not against it. If presented a Hawaiian roll, I would eat it, but it's nothing I would go out of my way to choose. By the way, what happened to Arby's? Used to have an bitter arch rival called Neba's. Do they still have anybody else remember Neba?
No.
How does it spelled?
I believe it's spelled Neba. They were like McDonald's and Burger King for a while.
I've never even heard of what it is you're talking about.
Neba's attempted to have the meats too.
They had roast beef?
They were a Arby's competitor, like a direct competitor.
It was like the Jets and Sharks back in the day.
Yeah, same kind of menu, right? But
how long, if you can find me, Stugotz, some information on Neba's. I find it hard to believe that there's a fast food that has existed in my lifetime that I have not heard of. Thank you for beating me to the same joke I was about to make, Chris. That's very useful.
Yeah,
it was built in the 60s.
There's a Neba right there.
Oh, wow.
Neba Roast Beef Restaurants, roadsidearchitecture.com.
When did they go out of business, old Neba's? It's a terrible name.
They shared a space with Mike Subs, huh?
Neba is a terrible name for a fast food restaurant.
And Arby's isn't?
Fair enough.
Arby's is fine. Neba's, I don't know.
They declared bankruptcy in 1970.
There you go.
And as of the mid-1980s, a few of them existed in upstate New York and Miami.
Craig, how is it possible that every segment on the show today that you go, that we cannot have something that you reference that is within the last half century?
Here's the reason. Everybody else is drinking Dr. Pepper. I'm drinking Mr. Pibb.
That's right.
Yep. Everybody else is waltzing into Arby's. I'm looking for a Neba. You know, I'm not a front runner. I'm a behind the front runner. That's where you'll find me.
The entire show has been a back in my day.
Thank you. Whatever happened, Neba.
You don't have a back in my day, do you? Do you have an actual back in my day?
I don't have an actual one or a facsimile, but I might next week.
It's a Tuesday.
Quality control week, though.
It is a quality control.
It was a rare
Billy
Tuesday where he
understands.
thought he might work on Monday.
Right.
That's
Yes, thank you.
In
That's a good
fairness to him,
excuse. That's a good excuse for me.
So you're blaming me, which is it's fine.
You know.
It's fine.
I'm up at 5 a.m. for no reason, but that's fine. Don't
You
worry
do make
about
an
me.
interesting point about the bread, though. You're saying the bread's supposed to complement the sandwich, not be the star of the sandwich.
Right. And it conflicts. Okay. If I'm making a pulled pork sandwich, I actively do not want a sweet roll. Okay, because the sweet roll might compete with barbecue sauce, might compete with the spice on the Boston butt. Mm-hmm. So, I like the vessel to be more neutral. I find Hawaiian rolls to be almost cloyingly sweet, to be honest.
You eat butt all the time.
I do. Yeah, and really enjoy making it and eating it.
I make fun of Greg Cody because of he comes in here and he goes extra fossilized with us, and I'm doing plenty around here to age out on my own, as is Stugotz, but he takes it to another level. I will say, though, I want to circle back around on something because I heard from a few people this weekend who heard our show last week when we played a Bob Costas clip for the audience. Can you guys get that clip for me again, please? I want to pair it with the Jake Tapper clip and play that I've promised. But the Bob Costas clip, I have talked to him some. I want to get him on a South Beach session and do something long form because I've enjoyed and admired his work for a long time. But I thought our show was profoundly disrespectful to the past by simply forgetting when talking about Bob Costas, because the framing of the argument that we were having is I don't like, and I don't know how to do this exactly because I make fun of Greg Cody for going into the past all the time, but I do believe that young people today, when they take over everything, they get awfully forgetful. I don't know what Stugotz's excuse was on this. They get awfully forgetful about what someone's resume was, and the clip that we played of Bob Costas was a political clip, and when you talk politics, it doesn't matter how you talk it, Stugotz. It really doesn't matter how reasonable you are in 2024. It doesn't matter what you say. People are lined up where they're lined up, and Bob Costas got attacked pretty evenly by everybody by going after both Biden and Trump with this clip we played last week.
That I've quoted from, you come at this from a position of not wanting to see Trump get elected. You should state that at the outset. True?
Yes, absolutely. He is by far the most disgraceful figure in modern presidential history. He's only become more disgraceful since 2016 and since 2020. He is a bubbling cauldron of loathsome traits, and it's only those who are actually suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, which is the way they and Fox News and all the rest of MAGA media try to brush aside all the legitimate criticisms of Trump. You have to be in the throes of some sort of toxic delusion, in a toxic cult, to believe that Donald Trump has ever been, in any sense, emotionally, psychologically, intellectually, or ethically fit to be president of the United States. But his supporters are locked in on that. There is no cult of Joe Biden. Just let me finish this thought, Michael. Even if he had not run explicitly with the pledge that he would be a one-term president, even if halfway through this term he had said, look, I've done my job, I have some policy successes, I'll continue to do my job, and now the Democrats can get, as I said before, some people up in the bullpen and sort through it. He had a chance to be seen as a statesman and a patriot. Now his legacy is likely to be that of a man whose hubris prevented him from seizing the moment in an appropriate way, and at best, he can squeak by Trump, that's at best, or he could lose to Trump and subject the nation to 4 more years of this kind of ongoing insanity, or if he squeaks by, it's very likely that he cannot complete his second term. He'd be 86 at the end of it.
Now, I don't know what it is that anyone in here thinks is wrong, factually wrong about what he said, but the reaction to me was wrong because of the number of people who dismissed his entire body of work by saying something along the lines of, who is Bob Costas? Who the hell is Bob Costas? And Stugotz was one of them. And the answer to your question is one of the top 10 broadcasters ever in the history of television. Not just sports, ever in the history of television is the answer to your question. Someone who has, outside of sports, done entire shows that don't have to do with sports, that are about politics, that are about interviewing, that are about entertainment. Someone who has gotten offered every meaningful job that there is in broadcast journalism. Nightline, 60 Minutes, all of them. And I just thought our entire show, in its ignorance, was wildly disrespectful to one of the top 10 broadcasting careers I've ever seen. And I defy you to name 10 broadcasters better than him. History of the medium.
Let me think about that for a second. He's a great broadcaster. I'm certain if I do a top 10, he'll probably be in there. You asked me, we played that clip last week, Dan. You asked me about the reaction to Bob Costas, that people were saying, well, who is Bob Costas? When you go on a political platform and you talk politics, you're naturally going to get that. You get it when you talk sports. Who is Bob Costas? Who is Dan Le Batard? Who is Greg Cody? And so I was just saying, while I respect Bob, and I think Bob is great like you, I was just saying I'm not surprised by the reaction of who is Bob Costas, because they don't want their politics mixed with sports.
I know, but you're ignoring a body of work if that is your dismissal.
I'm not ignoring anything. I'm just telling you why the reaction is the reaction.
He still is associated with sportscasting. You know, even though he does a great career of other stuff beyond and above sports, he is a sportscaster first and foremost in my mind and in the minds of most. And anytime I write anything that has anything to do with politics, I stick to sports.
What did he say that was wrong?
Oh, and I agree with him politically, so for me, he didn't say anything that was wrong. But I see why people on both sides would be upset with his take.
You could push back on accusing Joe Biden of hubris.
I mean, he didn't say much that was wrong there, Dan, but half the country disagrees with him. So, right. I mean,
he took out kind of both sides there, and that he did, like Mike mentioned, accuse Joe Biden of hubris. But I think that everything he said, and when we had this conversation last time around, he came at it with facts. Like, he came into this with research and a base level of knowledge that he could come into this conversation and deliver something in 90 seconds that was rooted in truth. And I think that when you're dismissing someone who comes at you with research, that's our biggest issue.
It's not just that, though, because that's one thing, dismissing someone who comes at you with research. You've heard me lament before sort of the rejection of expertise that we have. I know there are a whole lot of people listening to this and not listening to this who think they know everything while not knowing much at all. I'm simply talking about the expertise of this particular orator and the dismissal of this particular orator. If you're willing to dismiss the credentials of this person,
you'll dismiss anyone.
You will dismiss anyone.
Yep.
Because this person's credentials are unassailable. Like they're simply. I'm asking the audience, and I'm asking you guys legitimately. Let's have the conversation. Go ahead and tell me. Name all of the broadcasters in television history.
Yeah, I think you're having a different conversation. I don't think anyone's really pushing back on that. We said earlier that this is fact-based. No, that was all editorial. That was all opinion. And all of his opinions, whether you like it or not, are subjective. And they're treated as such by both sides in this case because it was considered inflammatory.
I agree with that. And it's also an opinion of his that Biden is too old. Now, I think they're both too old. I don't want to elect an 80-year-old president. But that's also an opinion, the idea that the Democratic Party would be better off with a younger candidate.
I guess the issue that we're looking at when it comes to facts, and I guess it's unfair of me to listen to that clip and say it all is fact in what he's saying. It's that it's rooted in fact, it's rooted in knowledge, it's rooted in the history of what's happened over the last several years with Donald Trump and with Joe Biden. And so the issue in dismissing someone like Bob Costas is dismissing someone who is not just approaching things to be a gas bag, but approaching things with a root knowledge. And so this is where we have problems in deciding who's a journalist, who's a gas bag on TV, who are the people that are actually coming at us with truth. And so that's where all of these things become problematic in the discussion that we're having about politics overall.
I would say as well, though, that Bob Costas has spent a career so clearly trying to adhere to the tenets of fair and objective journalism that I do believe it can be hard for anyone to discern what his actual politics are if you're just watching his television career before this.
Yeah, but
right now.
Yeah, I can't tell when Cleveland's playing Florida in the '97 World Series, but I am aware that he is more liberal.
Well, you could if he says the name.
That clip is pretty clear.
The reason why most people don't is because he's usually broadcasting things where they don't flash. Now, he was on that show to be a guest to offer up his opinion.
Can you play for me, I believe, a political clip that everyone by consensus in our audience will be totally fine with? Here is Jake Tapper on CNN. Jake Tapper, as as substantive a newsman as there is in the modern age.
Explanation was not they didn't like Donald Trump. They said he participated in an erection. And I have to, an insurrection, and I have to say I got up at 5 this morning to do Casey Hunt's show, and I'm exhausted.
That's some quick excuse making.
That was great.
Moderna.
Stugotz is strong as Tapper.
Super Bowl week.
It was some quick. Play it again. Play it again.
Speaking to Nikki Haley, too.
Explanation was not they didn't like Donald Trump. They said he participated in an erection. And I have to, an insurrection, and I have to say I got up at 5 this morning to do Casey Hunt's show, and I'm exhausted.
Sure you did.
Casey Hunt, a tricky one,
That
too.
would have been another place he could have made a mistake. Time now for Stugotz's list of 10 broadcasters better than Bob Costas.
Well, I'm just asking.
What do you mean you're just asking?
All right, it's 10 broadcasters I think that are better than Bob Costas.
Number 10, Stugotz.
Number 10, Red Barber.
You don't know anything about Red Barber.
Oh, do I know everything about Red Barber?
Say one thing other than his name about Red Barber.
Great broadcaster.
There you go.
Yeah.
He died in 1992.
Damn right he did.
But he lived. Man, did he live.
Number 9.
Kurt Gowdy.
Wow, good.
You like that,
Yeah,
huh?
I do.
Pandering to my dad.
That's
Thank
my
you.
wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Number 8.
Mel Allen.
Wow. You're reeling it back.
Number 7.
Howard Cosell.
Oh, yeah.
Number 6.
Dick Enberg.
Number 5.
Al Michaels.
Number 4.
Jack Buck.
Number 3.
Marv Alberts.
Number 2.
Jim Nance.
Number 1.
Brent Musburger.
That's who we're putting there?
All wrong.
Wow.
Brent Musburger.
I left out Jimmy McKay.
He's a good man.
I thought 4 through 10 were pretty good.
Every last one of those was wrong.
Vin Scully. I got you. I mean, Vin was a better broadcaster. Let's be honest.
But you didn't have him in your top 10.
OLI.
Jimmy Cephalo.
There you go.
I'm not doing the sounder for
I
that.
like it.
Joe Zagacki.
It's more like it.
Are you guys ready to play Met or Jet?
Oh, no.
It's time for everyone's favorite game, Met or Jet.
Dick Hearn.
Stugotz.
Steve
We have a
Wilson.
list of Mets and Jets
Right.
ready for you.
Okay.
I will say their name,
Right.
and you tell me which team they play for.
All right. Coin toss. All right.
First, Brett Beatty.
Oh, Brett Beatty. He's a Met.
He is a Met.
Sounded like he put a question mark at the end of that. It didn't sound like he was
Slight
very
one.
confident.
Next up, Jake Diekman.
Zeke. He's a Met.
He's a Met.
Sounds like a baseball player.
Next up, Bryce Huff.
Jet.
He did lead the Jets in sacks this year. Look at Stugotz go. Next up,
Johnny Most, by the way.
Jordan Whitehead.
Jordan Whitehead is a Jet.
Jordan Whitehead is a Jet.
Wow. I don't think
Better at
game
this
is
than we
going,
thought he would be.
This game backfiring on you,
Yeah,
huh?
it really is.
Yeah.
It's 50-50.
I'm 4 for 4, man.
Up next, we have Tyler McGill.
Met.
Matt.
You were hearing the first and last segment of Met or Jet.
It's gone on 5 questions too long, some might say.
Next up, DJ Reed.
Jet.
Jet. Damn it, Taylor.
All right, this game's over.
This is on Taylor. Blame Taylor.
I have a game for you guys.
Taylor, go sit in the penalty box. Tyreek Hill said
He's a Dolphin.
Stugotz.
Yeah, I can
Tyreek
confirm.
Hill could have been a Jet. Could have been a Jet. You know why he said he's not a Jet?
That guy never becomes a Jet.
Do you know why he said he's not a Jet?
Why?
It is actually, I'm guessing, because of state taxes, because the Jets offered more money, but the Dolphins were able to. I mean, is he the highest paid per year wide receiver in the league? Although many of them are getting money now. I think he's making $30 million a year. But he says that he was waiting for a call from Jets fan Adam Sandler, and Adam Sandler never actually called him. And that is the reason
Really?
that he is not a Jet, because he is a big Adam Sandler fan.
The Sandman.
It is hard to believe that Adam Sandler never called him.
It is. I almost
crazy.
don't believe it.
Dad, can you name 3 Adam Sandler movies?
This is not the Greg Cody wheelhouse. You guys are still doing a segment on the Greg
Greg doesn't
Cody
know
show
movies.
featuring Greg Cody.
I'm wondering, Greg, think about it for a second. If Sandler knew he had to make the call to Tyreek Hill and didn't make the call, because then I question whether or not the Sandman is a Jet fan. I mean,
That's
I
true.
have to. Yeah.
What is that golf movie?
Let's see. Don't tell him. Don't tell him. Let's see if he
Wedding Crasher.
No.
That's not the golf movie. but-
Wedding Crasher.
a single crasher.
Zoolander.
2 for 2.
What's a golf movie?
It's such a better game than
Happy
Men Are
Gilmore.
Jet.
There you
There
go.
it is. You got
Happy
that.
Gilmore.
Way to go.
Yeah.
That's the 3.
And The Wedding Singer.
No,
I said that.
You said the
Yeah.
Wedding Crasher.
Well, no, he meant.
Okay,
you know
Wedding
what he
Singer
meant.
is what I
We
meant.
know what he
Yeah,
meant.
And
you
you
know
know
what
it.
he
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So that's 3.
no, the second one was wrong.
Wedding Singer.
You said the Wedding Crasher.
Wedding Singer. No, Wedding
Wedding
Singer and
Singer.
Happy Gilmore.
The
Yeah.
list was
Gilmore.
Wedding Crasher,
I
Zoolander,
don't
and
know
Happy
that he's
Gilmore.
made
He
a
said
third
Little
movie.
Nicky, I think.
Who starred in Zoolander?
I
Give us anybody that starred in Zoolander.
couldn't even tell you what the Ron McGill. I don't know.
All right, McGillicuddy.
In fairness to Greg, he makes the same movie. I mean,
Yeah, right. Adam Sandler. Come on.
the Sandman.
Not
Ben
a Jet
Stiller,
fan.
who was-
Call
Not, a,
Tyreek
not
Hill.
an
I
actor.
mean, Jesus.
He's not here to be quizzed, guys.
Thank you, Billy. Billy gets me.
Billy, I thought of you the other day because I know I talk about the proliferation of shark movies. I really can't believe that these movies that are not cheap to make, okay, because movies in the water, using the water beyond CGI, are not cheap movies to make. Shark movies continue to get made at a rate that surprises me. It hasn't been made as well, I don't think, one time since the originator that has then
Don't say it.
spawned all sorts of others. I believe that Jaws is the greatest of the shark movies. You can disagree if you want. You could say it doesn't hold up, but it was the first of its kind, the pioneer. Everything else is an imitator of that. But I saw the other day this movie, and I couldn't believe this got made. The name of the movie is No Way Up.
Ooh, I like that.
And what happens is a plane crashes, and then things get bad. Because the plane crashes.
After it crashes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Crashes in the ocean. Crashes in the ocean.
Right.
And then there is a pocket of air
Wow.
where the people
Fighting for pockets.
still in the plane in the ocean, but the sharks are outside of the plane, and the people are too scared. There's no way up because they're stuck in the plane with no oxygen, and there's just a shark waiting outside of where the plane is crashed.
What do you do?
I mean, I know what I would do.
Yeah, but you run out of air.
You have to like divvy up the airplane food, those sad cookies.
Billy, what do you
start-
mean?
you
You
start-
know what you do?
No, I know
have
you
the
do.
microwave working.
You start kind of, I don't want to be grim here, but you start kind of throwing out some of the carcasses for the shark to go after. And then you make a swim for it.
Distract.
Exactly
Yeah,
right.
It's like I having a bad day right there.
Then you go, you get the inflatable that happens when a plane crashes in the water.
I don't know who that guy is, but that guy's been in so many movies,
Yeah,
and he
he's been in a
always is
lot.
having a bad day.
Really?
Was he in Con Air? I think he was in Con Air and The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill.
What's his name?
That guy.
Yeah,
No,
Prince
but
in the background there over his left shoulder.
I think that's Tony Khan.
Imagine crashing and being like, well, this can't get any worse.
It is Tony Khan.
you're in the ocean.
When Dove's crying.
He's saying he looks like Tony Khan. You're still. How many Prince songs do you think you can name?
Oh, I'm a huge Prince fan.
The Wedding Singer.
I'm going to take a quiz, but trust me on that. I know the purple one. Are you kidding me?
You know the purple one?
Yeah, I loved Prince. Yeah. Big fan of his. Very small man. I was in his company once, and he had the build of a horse jockey, like someone who would be riding calmly.
Was it the halftime show press conference?
Yeah, it was.
That was a press conference where he didn't come out. He came out and took no questions, right? Him and his band played 10 minutes. That's what they did as their Super Bowl press conference.
It was glorious. Absolutely glorious. And then he plays in a lightning storm. Who does that? What a man. Big loss.
How would Calmly do under the reins of Prince?
I think Prince would have made a great jockey, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Really?
Just the perfect size, about 118, 5'2". But
can't be true.
Calmly needs somebody who can negotiate a soft surface. That's why he runs exclusively in Europe. So I don't know how Prince would have been riding a horse in muddy.
Prince is indeed 5'2", 112 pounds.
What?
Thank you very much.
Boom.
I know jockeys. I'm a horse owner.
And know Prince, right?
Thank you.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wanted to talk to you guys about what happened with Anthony Edwards last night, because Anthony Edwards didn't check in on time. It was kind of embarrassing for him because he's kneeling by the scorer's table. Has anyone else considered this, by the way? Basketball probably should update that whole thing of kneeling near the scorer's table to
So
come
ridiculous.
into a game. That can probably be updated. These people are multimillionaires. They don't need to kneel next to the court before they come into the game, I don't think. But Anthony Edwards, they're tipping the ball off, and he's running out onto the court late, and he says he lost track of time. And so the game started without the star of the Timberwolves. And the first thing I thought of, because he left a game last week at halftime to make sure that he was at the hospital to see the birth of his son, what I thought is, that's a dad having trouble with the first few days of whatever that must feel like, because I can't honestly think, whatever the joyous experience is, I can't speak to this, many of you can because you have kids here, but whatever the joyous experience is, and I can't believe I'm having a child, this is wonderful, I love everything that's happening here so much. Because I have been since childhood someone who is a responsible person, to my detriment, I would say, all I think of is I'm going home now without a handbook on how to handle everything that comes after this, and that terrifies me. I am scared of going home from the hospital with this thing that if I drop it, I will do irreparable damage, and all of that seems scary to me. So I just think that Anthony Edwards didn't check into the game on time, because if you've had a child for only a couple of days, you are now stir crazy. You're not sleeping well. The first couple of days, I would imagine, Billy, this I think you're the one most recently to do this among us. The first couple of days of this are grueling and difficult, are they not? More difficult. I don't know if they get any easier, but first couple of days are particularly hard, are they not?
Yes, no, they don't get any easier. I think I have like 18 to 20 years before this becomes easier, I think.
No.
Really?
It doesn't get easier.
You know what I don't understand about this story? Anthony Edwards was not by himself somewhere. Like, he was in the arena doing something. No one knew what time it was. Like, how did no one get him out to the court? I don't understand that.
Am I the only one that just assumed he was taking a shit? I mean, that's where I went with that.
I mean, I could tell you when I remember this, when I had kids, I didn't want to leave my kids. I was so happy that I had, my daughters came home, and I was so happy. I didn't want to leave my wife. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to hang out with my kids. I certainly didn't want to hang out with Naz Reid.
I need to know, was he part of warm-ups? Dan has him as if he's just arriving at this time.
No, he was there. Supposedly before the game, he does band stretching. So
right, I think he was stretching and then just disappeared to the back right before
The quote
tip.
is, I lost track of time.
Yeah, but he was shitting.
Oh, yeah, he took a shit.
Isn't there the fourth guy on the coaching staff? Isn't he looking around the locker room going, "Hey, Anthony,
exactly.
It's almost game time."
I'm sure there's a locker room attendant. He's not walking around an empty arena.
Yeah, it just stretches
Picturing
credulity.
him just with his headphones on in his locker, just
dozing
losing
off.
track of
What's he
time,
doing?
just vibing.
right in front of their
The locker
faces.
room is empty, and they're like, "Anthony, let's go."
It is kind of crazy they just sent you home after a day or two. with a baby and like no instruction. Like, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, they're very careful leading you up to the threshold of the hospital because of liability, and then it's just F off.
Man, that drive home.
Terrifying.
The worst.
Scary.
The slowest you'll ever drive.
Yep.
Yeah. Driving 9 miles an hour on the interstate.
Did you buckle her in right? Yes, I buckled her in right. Why don't you pull over? I don't
Mommy's
think you
back
did.
there, like sitting next to
I don't
the
think you
kid.
buckled her in right. Yes, I did. Okay, we'll pull over. You happy now?
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Is it crazy that they let you leave the hospital after a day or two?
It's honestly
with a human baby.
irresponsible,
Reckless
of them. Yeah, like
Right.
someone should look into this.
Take care of my kid for a while.
Thank you.
Really?
Yes,
Let them live at the hospital for the first 6 months.
That's right.
Is it crazy, irresponsible, and reckless to let anyone leave the hospital with a human baby after just a day or two? Because it seems it doesn't seem like a thing that would be very pleasant. What it is that you're describing, you're joyous. Your wife is hurting. She's physically hurting. She's in a good amount of pain, and she's now arguing with you because you don't have any idea what to do because you're a man and you're an idiot.
And the time spent while she was in pain
But she-
should have been spent by figuring out what to do.
She doesn't trust you. She should have never let you be passionate with her in the first place. She's never trusted you. And now she has to trust you with the ability to take care of this thing and help her when they should have never let you leave the hospital with it in your possession. That was a magical time when the Giants started strong and Brian Daboll was a genius and Stugotz had him on God Bless Football with Billy Gill. And now Saquon Barkley is a free agent and Darren Waller is talking about retirement and Rich Eisen is reporting that the Giants are, quote, absolutely done, end quote, with Daniel Jones. And so that happened quickly. That was
Gave him a big contract.
That was a playoff team, right? The Giants got to the playoffs.
They made it to the second round of the playoffs. He got a contract because of that playoff game, the first game, not the second.
And it all fell apart very quickly. I was surprised. Rich Eisen, for all the information people that are out there, Rich Eisen isn't normally the one who comes with the information that is better than everyone else's, even though he is credible to say that he is that the Giants are absolutely done with Daniel Jones caught me off guard a little bit, even though I would understand that. It's not someone I've ever believed in, but he did have one season that did get him a contract, and that contract gets Tua the contract that he's angling for, where he can just walk into a room and say, well, I deserve more than that guy.
And he's right.
Yes. A low bar.
Stugotz traded Tua during one of the breaks and took Russell Wilson. For a couple $1 million and sent Tua away.
I was just asking Greg a question because Russ said he wants to play for a Super Bowl contender. There aren't many Super Bowl contenders who need a quarterback. And so I am just wondering, of the Super Bowl contenders, the Dolphins seem like the most logical when I'm asking this question. Would you rather have Russ than Tua? You get Russ for 2 or 3 years, $2 million a year. You get to keep all the other players. You draft a quarterback along the way, and you have Russell Wilson.
The shipping container is vigorously shaking its head.
You've assigned 2 to 3 years to Russell Wilson when we don't know what he has left.
I mean, I feel like he has 2 years left, maybe 3 years left. He can go to Kansas City and lose a playoff game.
Because the last 2 years have
for a
gone
lot
so
less.
well? But why? I don't understand how you're just 3 years on a guy that everyone kind of consensus feels is done.
I'm not saying the last few years for Russ has gone that well. I'm not saying that by any stretch. I've said that Russ is playing his way out of the Hall of Fame, which is insane. Okay, it's more of an indictment on Tua than it is a question about Russell Wilson. You would think about it. You would have to think about it. I'm not certain how much better Tua is than Russell Wilson.
I think your premise is that you spend less. The money you save by not giving Tua the big contract, you're going to re-sign Christian Wilkins and do stuff like that.
Billy, what are you doing?
Don't give him an argument.
It's
like
insane.
You're trying to
What do
now
you mean?
make sense of this argument that's nonsensical, and then he's just
Why?
agreeing and saying, yes, that's why I made that
Okay,
argument.
but-
Because Russell Wilson's bad at football now.
And my point is, if you're going to
Decent
spend
season.
big money anywhere, spend it on the most important position.
Right.
which is quarterback.
But is that the guy you want to spend it on?
I mean,
or do you want to reset with Russ for a couple of years and a rookie? That's all I'm saying.
I wouldn't, but then again, I think more of Tua and always have defended him more staunchly, even when he was being criticized 3 years ago and 2 years ago. I think Tua's a good quarterback, really good. Other than the fact he's not a dual threat, and I wince whenever he moves around in the pocket. Other than that, I think
not a little thing.
It's not a little thing, but accuracy is even more important in this league. That's why all the quarterbacks are completing 30 passes a game now, is because everybody's throwing shorter. When they have an accurate passer who can also hit deep, I think that's the guy you want to resign.
There is a mixture of in the shipping container of both disgust and horror.
And confusion.
Tua did beat Russell Wilson 70-20.
Right.
They took him out in the third quarter.
Yeah. I mean, Russ had 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He can get out of the pocket. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to another. Should have won 2.
Okay, but how does that help you now?
I don't. You're saying that you like.
It helps you now from a salary standpoint.
But for a rebuild, so you're just giving up?
Oh, I'm not certain the Dolphins would be worse this year if they get to re-sign everyone else.
This is
with Russell Wilson as opposed to Tua.
This is their championship window, though. You're saying in the middle of their championship window at the game's most important position, bring in Russell Wilson because you don't want to pay Tua next year?
Do you think he's a championship quarterback?
Russell Wilson?
No, Tua.
Tua?
He might be, but Russell Wilson is not now.
Yeah, I think he's better. I think he's quite easily better than Russell Wilson.
I mean, not now. I mean, we're saying that about Joe Flacco.
If I were making the argument on Stugotz's behalf,
I also wouldn't want Joe Flacco over Tua, Stu.
Cheaper.
I hesitate to do this, but the argument that Stugotz is making is that a quarterback of any kind, if you give Mike McDaniel the pieces and that offense, you will turn that quarterback into someone better than what he's looked like. What is your evidence of that? Look at what happened with Tua. He was somebody that nobody believed in.
No, your evidence is look what happened when Tua went out.
Right. Yeah.
Skylar Thompson did not become that guy. So
we almost won that Bills game.
You're to Teddy Bridgewater.
It's a money
who also
question.
did not become that guy. Your evidence is when Tua goes out, it's not great.
But you like Tua's chances without Christian Wilkins, without some of these other guys? Or
the question is simply, can you build around a cheap quarterback and have success? But that cheap quarterback needs to be good. That's what needs to happen for this all to work.
A title window, and I think even like the most, critical of the Miami Dolphins would still say that they are operating in a window of contention right now.
In a conference with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, who was out a year ago, it's tricky. I mean,
okay, but those people aren't going away just because you bring Russell Wilson into the team.
No, but you're saving money at the most important position in the sport, and I'm not certain you're that much worse. Is my point. That's it.
Well, if it's the most important position in the sport, you should spend money there.
Yeah, I understand that, but you have an opportunity to get a guy that I think for a year might be as good as Tua with this team and this coach.
Nobody thinks that.
Only you.
That's a.
You remember how bad Russell Wilson was 2 years ago?
Yes.
Just awful.
Yeah.
I just can't meet you there.
And now he's 2 years older?
You're projecting a performance of Russell Wilson that hasn't been there in a while.
We will talk to Mina Kimes about that coming up here in the post-game show. We will talk a little more Russell Wilson, but I wanted to ask you guys something here about what The Rock said. The Rock says that wrestling is cool again. He has trademarked a whole bunch of sayings. Jabroni, I thought that was the Iron Sheiks. I don't think that belongs to The Rock. But
he's gone.
Now it does. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, The Rock in being welcomed into the board of directors from TKO assumed full ownership of The Rock, the actual trademark, The Rock,
right,
and everything that is in and around that character is now his property. Pretty sweet deal. But he said pro wrestling is cool again, and it may be surging in the ratings. Interest may be higher than it's been in several years, but pro wrestling, and I say this as a pro wrestling fan, is never cool. It's just not water cooler talk. I know this because when people outside of a circle that I am comfortable with speaking about try to approach me and talk about pro wrestling, I think they're a nerd. I'm super self-conscious of how I sound when I talk about pro wrestling. Right now, I'm not doing anything for my brand by admitting that I like pro wrestling. It is never going to be considered cool by the masses. It is niche. It is male soap opera. It's athletic. It's great in ways that I'm not fully comfortable talking about into this microphone. But it will never, ever, unfortunately, be cool. And I say that as someone that loves it.
The Rock has trademarked 25 phrases. It's not just
Jeez.
jabroni. It's candy. It's rock bottom.
Rock bottom.
He is a businessman. It has been. He started at the University of Miami, obviously, and it tells the stories eloquently about going to the Canadian Football League, having his football dreams fall apart, driving out of the Canadian Football League with just a few dollars on him. And that has led to the maniacal work ethic that you see today. But I feel...
Have you ever been approached by a pro wrestling fan that just tried to talk to you about pro wrestling?
Yes.
Have you ever thought, man, this guy's basically James Dean?
No.
I feel shame in last night following the trail that led me to what was trending, which was Seth Rollins saying of The Rock, coining a new phrase for him that I'm assuming that The Rock will not trademark, calling him Diarrhea Dwayne.
See, it's just not cool. Yeah. It's just not cool. You're talking about it, and I want to leave the room. I want to crawl out of my skin. Just let me like this in private with the people that I'm comfortable. My dad, who taught me how to like pro wrestling, tries to talk to me about pro wrestling, and I want to stop liking the sport altogether. Now, that may say more about my relationship with my father, but I don't feel comfortable talking about pro wrestling in open forums because look at the way that Greg's looking at me. And Greg's not someone that I think personally is super cool, but when he looks at me with his judging eyes when I talk about pro wrestling, I know I have a losing hand.
I just don't understand how anyone loves pro wrestling. To me, it's like being a huge fan of American Gladiator or some other made-up sport that really isn't real, but it's just like a fantasy. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's soap opera. It's a soap opera stunt show with, it's predetermined, but
right. I just
these
don't
are
get it.
Incredible. I can't defend it. I sound so bad.
Has wrestling ever been cool? I feel
think
like in the 80s it
NWO
was.
maybe? Time?
Well, when Cyndi Lauper was adjacent to it in WrestleMania and had its mainstream moment, yeah, maybe, but even the Attitude Era with Stone Cold and The Rock at their heights, and that's talk about glowingly. When you were in it, it's not like we were cracking open the microphones and just talking unabashedly about our passion for pro wrestling. It's just not one of those things that you're never considered cool when you talk about pro wrestling.
However, I can make an argument, not for zealot fandom from an adult, but I can make an argument that what I am presently seeing in wrestling with athleticism is an insanity. That what these people do in the ring is so dangerous, and the extremes they have now taken it beyond anywhere that I could have possibly imagined, falling from heights, leaving the ring, and going, just through the air in a way that is like more dangerous than football. More dangerous than football, some of the things that they're doing that if they go wrong could result in paralysis. I'm surprised that more people don't get hurt. And when I watch some of these documentaries about wrestling in terms of how it is that you harden the body for pain, you've heard, right, mixed martial artists from foreign lands sort of toughening their shins by just kicking trees so often that the bruises and calluses become so numbed that you are now the owner of a weapon because your legs don't feel pain. What wrestlers have to do in order to become immune to some of the pain of just falling on the mat. I think people watching that who don't have an appreciation for it don't understand how dangerous some of the things being done presently in wrestling, that never mind the 80s where it's a Hulk Hogan leg drop. This is a totally different thing that you're watching now where the 50th best guy in wrestling is jumping off of the top rope in a way that's super absurd.
Yeah, you use parts of your body that you don't know can be sore. You have to develop a body callus. Logan Paul is actually a pretty natural athlete. Say what you will about Logan Paul. Say what you will about that match, but he did go the distance with Floyd Mayweather in a boxing ring as a total novice.
Jake Paul.
No, Logan Paul.
Oh, Logan Paul.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Logan Paul had that match against Floyd Mayweather. He's presently a champion in the WWE. Took to it naturally, and he speaks a world of the athletic traits that go into that sport. I think it's I'm right there with you, Dan. I think it's incredible what these people put their bodies through just to entertain. But at the same time,
Still not cool.
It's not cool. It's not cool when I talk about it.
Is pro wrestling unregulated? Because if
Yes.
what you say is true, it needs to be a regulated sport.
I mean, there are
limit
safety
some of the
protocols.
dangers.
Chris Nowinski, actually, the person that we accused of, the person that that accused the Dolphins potentially of manslaughter, actually got his concussions in pro wrestling. And he was a pro wrestler himself, and he's actually worked closely with WWE. And if you watch wrestling now, you won't really see chair shots to the head. You'll see matches stop when a performer is out on his feet or out of it, because these concussions do happen still. People are still colliding and whatnot. It is much safer, but that doesn't make it safe. Much like football is safer, but still not safe.
How's that murder trial going?
I mean, you're sending two away for Russell Wilson, so clearly there was something to it.
I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing.
Murdered his career if you're entertaining that.
Speaking of fun cushions, can you guys get me the UNLV coach again, Barry Odom, who decided to ride a bull and ended up like this is clearly and obviously a concussion. There is no disputing this, correct?
Oh,
I'm uncomfortable watching that.
I mean, look at that. He has no
The
legs.
walk away, right?
He nailed the high five, though.
The high five. What are we doing?
The weaving through the sand high five of.
What led to this? I know it was a fundraiser, but
He's trying to raise money for the UNLV running
of a bake
Rebel
sale?
football
bake sale.
program.
There's a way to go. Little Debbie cakes, chocolate bars. Do that.
A bake sale to raise money?
Absolutely.
You don't need to be doing this,
Girl Scout
man.
cookies, anything.
Krispy Kremes. Love Donut Day. And Pizza Day. Oh,
This guy may be permanently impaired because of what just happened to him.
I can't watch this anymore.
Yeah,
and
well,
that helmet's
this is
doing him no
No,
good.
I'm genuinely
We can
making
stop
an
showing
appeal
it
to
now.
stop showing
Please,
that.
video.
We're going to be jacked up all of a sudden. Let's stop doing that, please.
Now you're making the appeal after we've played it 10 times?
No, I made it 3 times ago.
And playing it again. Boy.
I flop.
It is disturbing. A flop. Come on. Come on. Now Mike has me feeling great remorse about what it is that we've done. I figure you put it in a rodeo, you make it a charity, you make it the UNLV program, you make it a bull. I felt we were safe to make it a fun cushion.